My heater's off because it's making like a droning noise. Recording is actually a lot scarier when you're doing it yourself. Guys, I can't do this. I don't remember it by heart. How am I supposed to do this, guys? I don't know how I'm supposed to do this if I can't memorize it. If you're watching this, this is like take 500,000. Hi, my name is Marina. My mom, my brother, and my sister call me Nana. My friends call me Mai or Marina. And on social media, I just go by Mai. I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend. I'm a hopeless romantic. I love anime, and I love art and nature, but I have a huge passion for the sciences. Above all of this though, and what tends to loom over my head the majority of the time, is that I'm sick. This is little me. She was a force. She was an athlete. From soccer to swimming to dance, she was just always on. In middle school, her professor called her little witch, saying the way her fingers moved on the piano were magical. Swim coaches told her she was full of potential. Her dance teacher once told her that she knew God put her on this earth to move and for her movements to move others. Little me doesn't exist anymore. She left me 7 years ago. When I look in the mirror now, I don't see the girl that smiles back at me in pictures. I lost her, and I grieve her every day. But grief is defined as the deep anguish felt after the loss of a loved one. So how do I grieve a piece of me that doesn't exist? How do I grieve something that's not actually dead? Failure to accept reality is a trait I learned to imitate from the adults around me. Although there's a distinct point in time where my health journey started, whenever I look back, I realized that I had always been sick. I was a semi-verbal toddler that screamed when people spoke to her. I didn't learn to walk unless somebody was holding the other end of a broomstick. Vision was crap, and I was in OT, speech therapy, PT, almost all of the therapies under the sun around the clock. But nobody thought to see, like, hey, maybe something wrong with her. Everybody said I was normal. And when I had joint pains and stomach aches growing up, doctors just told my mom that it was just a part of growing up, that everybody experiences pain. Denial as a stage is even more complicated for me as I grew up in church. I was constantly surrounded by toxic positivity that was just hidden behind the Bible. As my conditions progressed, I found myself at the altar every Sunday, trying to pray the pain away. That didn't work, so I thought I had done something wrong. If I wasn't consistently blaming myself for my progressing illnesses, I was denying its existence, especially because most doctors told me that my experiences were just all in my head. For a while, I thought I was clumsy. I didn't think I was sick. Swimming with almost no cartilage on my hips and a torn labrum, playing the piano until my fingers swole, dancing until I was dizzy, and writing until I couldn't read anymore. Just small things that I did to push myself past the limits, convincing myself that I was lazy and that I couldn't keep up because I simply didn't want to. At 14, I'd look at my knees every morning and tell myself, hey, this is normal. It's okay that you're waking up swollen every morning. Every 14-year-old experiences this. Emotions like denial aren't unique though. It's actually quite common. I have friends who dealt with the same things too.
Hi. My name is Bridget.
I'm Lex Wright.
Mathea.
I'm Marlene.
My doctors always told me like I need to drink more water or go try yoga. Everyone I knew was able-bodied.
Most of my doctors growing up told me that the reason I was having joint pain or any asthma flares or anything like that was because of my weight.
I just assumed that this was like a phase temporarily everyone went through. They were like disabled for like a year or whatever.
Issues with my body have never been new to me. On the eve of my 15th birthday, I was diagnosed with celiac disease. Suddenly, I had to cut out gluten, which meant that I could no longer eat foods that I loved, and I also felt like I was cut out of my culture because food has always been an integral part of every single family gathering. There I was, a kid who had been bullied since grade school, who had absolutely no friends, who just wanted a place to feel safe in the world. And at this point, my body, the only thing that belonged to me and the only thing that I count on, completely rejected me. To make things worse, I planned a trip to Hershey Park for my 15th birthday. I love sweets. I loved sweet back then, and I still love sweets now, and I had planned to eat every single sweet that I laid my eyes on. But my mom was pretty diligent about starting me on a gluten-free diet, and I had to indulge in the only gluten-free option available at the time, the chocolate milk. For reference, I hate chocolate milk. I was infuriated. Why now of all times did I have to get diagnosed, and why me? Although I was angry at myself, I was angry at the world, and I was angry at the people around me.
As much as my family did their most to be support, like my mom
and dad were great. But like my other additional family members, they're aware of my disability, but they're not living with like the ins and outs of it like my parents were. So when it came to like planning family activities, then thinking about, okay, how is she gonna get in here? It's still something I deal with that it doesn't cross people's minds at all. So you do deal with a little bit of anger, especially after a certain amount of time. See, you're born with this. It's not like, I became disabled at a certain point. Like it's been, like I said, I'm 31. So sadness and anger sometimes.
On July 13th, 2018, at 11:48 p.m., I laid awake in bed crying. It was the eve of my birthday, and we had spent the day at Hershey Park. At the time, my chronic pain was becoming more severe, and I had asked my family to rent me a wheelchair, and they opted not to, telling me to push through it, and I did. I was in immense pain this night, and I laid in bed, silently cursing my own existence. I remember feeling so angry that the world kept turning while mine was just stuck. Through tear-soaked eyes, I watched the clock strike 12. What a happy birthday. I hated that people still lived happily. It even made me mad that my mom was snoring next to me, sleeping peacefully while I had to deal with the repercussions of my achy joints. Why was I punished for simply trying to survive while other people are rewarded for causing people harm? Before I was diagnosed with celiac, my relationship with food was complicated. I was super picky. I didn't like a lot of things. And if something looked odd or unfamiliar, I immediately brushed it off. When my diagnosis came, I wondered if things would have been different if I had a greater appreciation for food. What if I tried more things before this? Would things have turned out the same? The what ifs took over my mind completely. What if I stretched before swim classes? What if I had iced after every dance rehearsal? What if I was a better person? What if this was a punishment for something I'd done? My mind wandered into my faith. What if I prayed harder? What if I sinned in some way to cause this illness? This had to be some crazy punishment from God that I deserved. What did I do?
People were always praying for me, like they would say that directly to my face. So I was just like, oh, well, if they're praying for me, like maybe I can pray for this to go away.
God, what if I did do this? Or God, what if I did do that?
If I push through this workout or I go to this class even though I'm not feeling well, maybe I'll just do better.
Like for a very long time, it was like every birthday wish, like every eyelash, and I would pray all the time and be like, I really don't want to be disabled anymore. Like I'd love for that to, like, I want that fixed.
For a while, I truly believed that I caused my own illness. I thought that this was some cosmic way of teaching me a lesson. A lot of people think that we can earn our way out of suffering. But what happens when we can't? Even now, I know that my illnesses aren't my fault. But those thoughts still creep in, especially when I'm in a flare-up. There's something really human about wanting to assign blame, whether it's on my environment, whether it's on a higher power, the universe, or God. It gives the illusion that I have control, even when I don't. But here's the thing about bargaining. It doesn't work. There's no deal that can undo the past. My body is what it is, and no amount of stretching, wishing, or praying will ever change that. My pain is incomprehensible, but it comes from my body. The very thing that's supposed to protect me betrays me every day. It's strange, and it's cruel, and it's ironic, because in a sense, I will always be the villain in my own story. How do you reconcile loving yourself when your body is the source of your suffering? How do you not hate the thing that's made you a prisoner? As a child, whenever somebody asked me, oh, why don't you feel well? I say, I don't know why, I'm just sick. As a teenager, those 3 words, I'm sick, danced in my head on a 24/7 loop. It wasn't until later that I began to understand just how much my illnesses and conditions were affecting my mind as much as they were my body. One night in October 2022, I was actually in this room, believe it or not. I was sitting on my floor, I was studying for an exam for my neuroscience class. And when I went to get up, I felt both of my kneecaps slide in and out of place. It was super painful, and I had to crawl back to my bed. Took my exam the next day. I was using crutches at the time. And when I came back to my room, I kind of just let my body feel, or let myself feel all of the pain that I had been feeling, and I ended up missing class for about 2 weeks after that. When I felt slightly recovered enough to get back to walking, when I stood up to walk, I could not move my legs in the way I wanted to. It was weird because I quite literally forgot how to walk. Who from Euphoria says that depression collapses time, and suddenly you find yourself in this endless, suffocating loop. I felt that in every single moment of my body.
I feel like my world is stopped and everybody else's world keeps going around me.
Every moment stretched out as if I was in a slow, dark tunnel. I was waiting for something. I was waiting for anything to change, but nothing did. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and the pain was relentless. What made it worse is that I had to watch everyone around me just live life like normally. My roommate went to class and came back and told me what would happen, and I would just sit and think I could be there, but I can't because my body hates me, so I'm just stuck. It was like I was frozen in place while time moved on without me. By the end of December 2022, I knew I had to withdraw from college. It was the second time I'd had to leave school because of my health. The first time was in high school, where I left for a couple months right before COVID hit. But this second time I was older, so it felt a lot heavier. I couldn't keep up with my classes or walk to them. Walking to the bathroom or getting up to brush my teeth was a challenge, and eventually I just couldn't fight anymore. I had to leave school. As I packed this room up, I felt like I was leaving myself behind. I was leaving the people I love behind, the studies I love behind, and I left my dreams here. I didn't feel like I had a purpose anymore. I couldn't attend school. I couldn't be the person I wanted to be. I couldn't do the things I used to love. I needed help showering. I needed a shower chair. I had trouble getting dressed on my own. Everything. I needed help with absolutely everything. My body was a stranger to me, and my mind followed. I spent days in bed, unable to summon the energy to move, to talk, to eat. I kind of just woke up and stared at the ceiling. I didn't care whether it was morning or night, and I really hoped that I would go to sleep one night and just not wake up again.
I was a competitive cheerleader for 14 years, so as my health started to decline and I got my diagnoses, I definitely felt a lot of depression not being able to do the sport that I love so much, as well as like losing my independence to an extent, needing someone to go with me if I was going to be walking long distances in case I fainted and things like that. Losing the ability to do things independently crushed me.
The worst part is that I couldn't really explain any of it. I was going to doctor's offices and they'd take one look at me and say that either my situation was way too complicated for them to treat, or that there was actually nothing going on because I'm just a super anxious person. Not having a word for what you're going through can be really demeaning, and it can make you lose your sense of self, especially when you can't do anything yourself to begin with. I remember I went to the doctor's office with my mom, and my doctor told me to flex my legs, and I thought I was flexing my legs, but it turned out that I was flexing my stomach instead. And she told me, she said, you have some sort of neuromuscular condition. Your brain, or what you want to do with your body, your brain is having trouble sending those signals through your spinal cord so that you can know what to do. And I think that's when my mom understood that I was genuinely struggling. She had believed me from the get-go, but it was hard to get people to understand what was going on. As if I was locked in my own little world, in my room, isolated from everyone, while they just kept living their lives.
In general, somebody's stuck somewhere, that's when they're gonna feel the most fear or the most helplessness. So when everything is working in my system the way it's supposed to, then I don't really think about disability. When your daily life is like has to be structured around other people's time, ooh, that will get you the most, but it gets me the most.
But then I remembered Rue's words. I wasn't alone. For a while I felt like my body and my mind were broken beyond repair. But hearing her words echo in my mind just made me think that this was probably just a part of the process. The complete and utter loss of sense of self, or not knowing who you are, is a part of life. I mean, we all go through it. This would pass, right? My depression, though, It's not something I can leave behind. I still feel it sometimes, probably more when I'm in a flare-up and I know my future's uncertain. Definitely when I can't keep up with the world around me. It's not as bad as it was before, but I know that it's never gonna go away. And I think that as long as I'm like this, as long as my body is like this, there's going to be a bit of depression that comes with that. And part of coming to terms with this, or part of grieving, is learning to live with that depression too.
Only days like when it's a bigger challenge, for sure, when my depression is really coming in strong in terms of my disability. And I think that it's always there, but there are just moments when it's less loud, I guess.
The sadness never fully leaves. It's just a quieter part of my room some days. I know there's nothing I do right or wrong that will influence when my body fails me again. It's just something I've learned to live with. I've come to understand that it's okay to feel this way sometimes, but that doesn't mean that I've lost hope. It means that grief, just like illness, is a part of my existence, and it always will be. Testing is the point of grief where you start to search for ways to live with your loss. It's less about trying to fix things and more about trying to adapt to them. For me, it didn't happen all at once. It came with a series of tiny experiments. Some people take up running or start going to the gym, but that's not always the greatest option for me. Creativity became my version of running. My body couldn't carry me, so I decided that my hands would. During my first medical withdrawal from school, I picked up a pencil and I started to draw. When I withdrew for the second time, I learned to crochet. During flare-ups, when moving is too painful and rest felt a little too still, I made beautiful things. I made a baby blanket, I've made plushies, I've made a shirt, I've even crocheted my birthday outfit. These little creations are my symbols of resistance. Proof that even in pain, I can produce something meaningful. I wasn't alone in this. Others I spoke with described their own form of testing. Lex said they found a new community of people when they became disabled. Thea has also drawn and written many things to cope. Marlene has even found a passion for disability advocacy. Testing wasn't just about creativity though. It was about learning to advocate for myself. For a long time, I resisted the idea of using my wheelchair. It was proof that I was worse than I wanted to admit, but eventually I had reached a breaking point. I couldn't keep pushing through the pain and pretending that I didn't need help, so I fought for my chair. Getting my chair wasn't easy. I had to navigate insurance forms and justify my need. Because I'm not physically paralyzed, a lot of insurance companies and a lot of seating clinics refuse to even see me as a patient. But the day that I finally sat in my chair, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. I felt freedom. All along, it wasn't about giving up. It was about giving myself the tools I needed to live fully. Testing doesn't mean the grief is gone. It doesn't mean the pain is vanished. But it's a way forward. It's a reminder that even after loss, there are pieces of life that are worth living for. I am sick, but I am so much more than that. For a long time, I waited for the day when everything felt okay again. I thought that accepting my disability was like a finish line, a moment of clarity where the pain would dissolve and I'd finally feel at peace. But I've learned that acceptance isn't just a moment, it's a process. Every single day, I make 1,000 small decisions to keep going, even when it feels impossible. Bridget shared something that stuck with me too.
Pretty sure I would not get rid of my disability if I had the option. And a lot of my most positive personality traits that I believe that I have are associated with my disability, and that they've developed because of the things that have come along with my disability.
Conditions may make my life harder. They bring pain, complications, and challenges I never asked for. But they also allow me to appreciate life in a way I never could before. I savor the little things, singing with my friend at midnight, lying in the grass while it rains, going to the beach by myself, watching Cinderella 9 times in 1 week, getting farted on by my sunshine girl, teaching my mom how to use emojis, and crocheting a hat for my grandma. These moments are everything. They're beautiful, but not despite my illness, but because of it. I live through them with so much more gratitude. I will never have a frictionless existence. Really, what's an accomplishment if you never have to work for it? Every sleepless night, every moment of pain, every tear, it's all worth it. Every this was so that I could live that. Every night in the hospital is worth playing games with my little cousin. Every stomach ache is worth listening to music with my brother. Every tear is worth resting my head on my mom's lap. Every procedure is worth water fights and getting insomnia at midnight. And every sleepless night is worth getting to feel the sun on my cheeks. These moments would mean nothing without my illnesses, because happiness means nothing without pain. So yes, I am always moving toward another flare-up, another setback. I'm always moving toward more pain, but it's worth it. My life is not perfect, but I'm here, and that's enough. I have explained all of these things pretty chronologically, but this cycle, it never really ends. And I promise you, it's not as pretty as it looks like on camera. Since my teenage years, I've learned that I have some sort of rare genetic condition that medicine might not have a name for. Doctors have thrown a lot of diagnoses at me, from Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, ataxia, amplified musculoskeletal pain syndrome, sleep disorder, hip dysplasia, celiac disease, dysautonomia, thyroid disease. Like, it is quite literally never ending. I still get angry at myself for needing accommodations too. I hate it when my POTS makes me dizzy every time I do laundry. And sometimes I gaslight myself into thinking I don't need my wheelchair, only to pay the price later. I bargain constantly, telling myself that, oh, if I do more physical therapy, I'll feel better, even when I know that it's not true. My body is constantly changing, and I'm learning about it every day. Tomorrow, I might be more depressed than usual, but next week I might feel completely fine. Grief does not go away. You just learn to live with it. My new motto is to take things as they come and to mourn things as they go. Life is a series of transitions. Mine just happened to be medical. And you know what? I'm grateful for that. I probably won't get better, and that's okay. I may never be a dancer again. I may never have a pain-free day again, and that's okay too. Every day it feels like I'm chasing after the ghost of little me, but I will never be who she originally wanted me to be, and that's okay. She had to die so I could live. Thank you so much for watching. This is Atticus, my best friend.